Hi, I'm Heather, and this is Brain Murder and Mystery, and I have a new show for you today. Hold on, let me get some water. Mm, my new cup, it's so cute. Okay, this is going to be different today because my kid thought it would be fun if I tried to do my makeup while I did the murder mystery episode. So here's my thoughts that's going to happen. One, I'm going to forget 90% of my makeup because I'm going to be focused on details. Or two, I'm going to forget details because I'm going to be so focused on trying to do my makeup. I have my note. There's a lot of them. Um, but I thought this would be fun, and why not? So I don't even know what I'm going to do on my face. So if it comes out looking crazy, I mean, that's what you get, right? Oh, I thought this would be really fun. I can at least attempt it, right? So we are going to do that. And if you want to know what kind of makeup I'm using, I'll probably forget. So this is a lot for me to do at one time. So I've already said so 500 times, haven't I? We are off on a good start. A good start. I should probably put my hair up. I had already pre-recorded this episode, but I just felt like it was bland. It was not all it should be. And today's case is about a survivor story, and I really, really think that it just deserves a lot more of my feelings, attention, feels, and I don't know. I don't know what I'm trying to say. Before I keep rambling, if you like this kind of content and ideas, give me a like, a subscribe, and a comment. I don't know. And I will continue to try to do this. Or maybe I'll do other stuff. I don't know what I'm going to do. But just sitting there can be kind of boring. I mean, if you're watching or listening to podcasts, those are different things because I just cook and clean and do all kinds of stuff when I'm listening to people. But enough rambling, enough rambling. Today's story is about Mary Vincent. She is an incredible woman, like incredible. I don't even know how she survives. Okay, so it's a survivor story. Hooray. Because I love survivor stories. It's I mean it's crazy when people don't survive and they go through something tragic, but when they do survive and I mean they're just inspirational, like inspirational. So, we're going to talk about Mary Vincent today and her incredible story. So, buckle up, Buttercup, because here it goes. Mary Vincent was born May 17th of 19 oh, hold on. Of 1963. And she was said to be really, really happy and bubbly as a child. She was on basically track to become a professional dancer. Even her instructors had said that she was going to like go far. And she had even done some like lead dancing in the Lido de Paris in Las Vegas. And her parents were her mom was like a blackjack dealer. Her dad had some time in the military and they got married and had 7 kids. So she's got a lot of siblings. Unfortunately, the parents would go through a pretty nasty divorce, and this divorce would lead to Mary just like she didn't do well. She didn't do well. She didn't want to be at home. Life was too challenging. So when she was 15 years old, she decided to run away from home. Back, this is in the 70s. So back in the 70s, I don't know, kids were leaving their houses at younger ages. Now it would be crazy. But back then it wasn't really. I mean, people were getting married early and it was crazy. But anyways, she runs away from home and starts living on the streets. So what she would do was she would try like cars, and if they were unlocked, she would sleep in those cars at night and use them as shelter, which is kind of smart because she could lock herself in there and I mean unless she gets caught by the owner, but it'd be a lot safer than just sleeping out in the middle of nowhere and being vulnerable. So she ends up meeting this guy, and his name is Diego Montoya. Now, he's a sleaze bag right off the. It doesn't say that, but I'm gonna say that. He's 26 years old and she's only 15. So he sees that she's vulnerable and takes advantage of that. The news articles said that they were boyfriend and girlfriend, but 15 and 26, yuck. That's not boyfriend and girlfriend. That is straight up you're a pedo. And he ends up actually going to jail for raping a 15-year-old, a totally different 15-year-old. And so now Mary is alone again. She's on the streets by herself, no companionship. She's feeling really desperate to be around somebody that she knows. She's feeling really desperate to just not be on the streets anymore. So she thinks that she's going to go ahead and go see her grandfather. Now, her grandfather lived in Southern California, and remember, she's in Vegas. So back in the 70s, what a lot of people would do is they would hitchhike. It's totally scary today, and I would not recommend it. I have hitchhiked in my past, and I got completely chastised. The person that picked me up, just a little side story, uh, drove me home and then told my mom so that I would get in trouble because, that's the kind of person that picks me up. So I guess yay for them because they didn't kidnap me and they weren't a serial killer. So anyways, but back in the 70s, it was not, that is, I don't know where all they got. See, I'm already messing up. It was not unheard of to go hitchhiking. And so Mary was like, I'll just hitchhike from Nevada to California and it will be like no big deal. So she gets on with a couple of drivers that take her all the way to Berkeley, California. And this is where she gets dropped off. So in Berkeley, California, it's like like college town. So there's lots of younger people there. And it's actually known as Hitchhiker's Corner because of how many hitchhikers kind of got dropped off at the location. Or maybe this is just the location that they started from. So when Mary gets dropped off here, it is not unusual to see several hitchhikers. Now she's got her sign that says like headed south, but there's other people that are headed in the same direction as her. And they're all kind of walking around on this road and waiting to be picked up. So you kind of walk, you don't just sit there all day. You're headed in the direction that you want to go. So this is where we meet Lawrence Singleton. He also goes by Larry, but I'm going to call him Lawrence for the majority of this. This guy is the devil. Can I say he's the devil? Because he certainly acts like the devil. He is, he's a whole lot. He's a whole lot. We know very little about his childhood, but basically he was born in the 28th of July in 1927, and he gets married twice, has a daughter from his first marriage. He is violent. He's an alcoholic. He's just a real winner. His daughter doesn't want anything to do with him because he's so violent. So he's living in Sparks, Nevada in his 50s. His family doesn't want anything to do with him. Big shocker. Moving on. This is where he meets Mary. So he's in Berkeley for some reason because he's not in Sparks, Nevada. And he sees this young girl with her thumb sticking out, and it's like, oh, pull over, I'm going to take her. Well, he has this big van. All these hitchhikers that are kind of on the road with her see the van pull over, and they decide they are going to go get in the van too, right? Like he's got plenty of room. They're all going the same direction. But he's closest to Mary, and she looks in and she sees this 51-year-old guy, and he actually reminds her of her grandfather. The other hitchhikers come up to the van, and Lawrence is like, no, I only have room for one. And The other hitchhikers are getting some bad vibes from this. They're like, why does he want just one? And why does he want Mary, who's the youngest of this group? So they kind of give her like a heads up, like, hey, this is just giving us bad vibes. And Mary, who is desperate to not be on the road anymore, decides that she doesn't care. He seems fine. She's going to go ahead and go with him. So she gets in the vehicle. Everything seems fine. They pull away. He starts some small talk, probably like, oh, I have a daughter your age and the weather's so great in California. Who knows? Just some small talk. A little ways down the road, Mary decides that she's going to have a cigarette. She lights it up, she sneezes or, I don't know, inhales wrong. And Lauren reaches over and like strokes the back of her neck. She kind of backs away. She's like, whoa, 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 hold up, right? And of course, he apologizes. Like, oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to offend you or anything. And she's kind of like, okay, maybe he's just a little more touchy-feely than most. And blows it off. She just blows it off. She doesn't want to believe that, anything's really wrong. Again, they kind of go back to small talk. She realizes this is going to be kind of a long ride and she's tired. She's young. She's tired. She hasn't been sleeping well. So she decides that she is going to take a nap and pass some time. When she wakes up, which we have no idea how long she was out, she is immediately concerned because she sees a sign go by that says Nevada. Now, she was from Nevada. Oh, golly. Oh, this is horrible. She's from Nevada and she's trying to get California. She was already in California. What is she doing back headed towards Nevada? So she has a little panic moment of like, what in the world? Where is this guy taking me? So she finds this kind of pointy stick. I don't know what this guy has a stick in his van for, but she uses it to kind of like prod at him and be like, hey, you were supposed to take me to California. Turn this around. And he finds like an area to turn around, plays off like, oh, I'm just an old man and I don't really know what I'm doing. And they're now headed back towards Southern California. Now, Mary kind of is like, okay, maybe he really doesn't know what maybe. She's kind of buying it, maybe not buying it. And they're now on this really long stretch. If you don't know Nevada to California, there is some areas that you can go 100 miles an hour forever. It's like, there's nothing out there. And it's just pitch black now. Like, it's starting to get really, really dark. They've spent all day traveling. She's starting to get nervous. Well, Lawrence just kind of is like, I have to take a leak. So he pulls off the side of the road. Now, this in itself wouldn't have been too out of the normal because unlike today, where I feel like there's a gas station every 10 feet on the freeway, if this was the 70s, there wasn't. This was the like, you better fill up now because there's no gas station for a ways out. And so it just wasn't unusual. That's what I'm getting at. So they pull over and she decides to get out to stretch her legs too because she's been cooped up in this van also. Things are starting to really get to her though, because she's like, I'm out here, it's all dark and I don't see anybody. There's no lights. She sees no passing cars. She starts to let her mind wander back to him stroking her neck and his weird, like, we're going in the wrong direction. So she's just getting really concerned. She thinks, okay, this guy is like old. I'm young. I could outrun him. Looking down at her shoes, she realizes my shoes are untied. I can't outrun him if I trip and fall on my face. Leaning down to tie her shoes, she's completely oblivious that Lawrence, in fact, has walked around the van, got a sledgehammer out of the back, and he walks over behind her quietly And all of his force, he just whacks her on top of the head. Like, the fact that she didn't die in that moment from her brains falling out, I don't like cracked open head, that just boggles my mind, first of all. But she does kind of get knocked out, like concussion, right? I mean, a sledgehammer's the back of the head. And he decides to drag her to the back of the van. When she comes to, she is rudely awakened by Lawrence trying to put his penis into her mouth. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. He tells her to perform oral or she is going to get killed. Like, grandpa, no, thank you. But of course, she doesn't want to get killed. And what is she going to do? Like, she can't even scream for help. Who's around? Nobody. So Lawrence is not satisfied by this action and then proceeds to rape her. And again, she is told if she screams or does anything of the such, she's going to get killed. So he puts her in the back of the van and ties her up. They drive a little ways. He tells her she needs to drink this liquid again or she's going to be killed. And she's assuming this is like an alcoholic beverage. The thought process here was that if she is basically drunk and woozy, she is going to be easy to handle. So she's starting to get woozy. She's starting to get tipsy. Lawrence pulls off again. And this is where he pulls her out of the back of the van and kind of like pushes her out. Well, she is naked. She is kind of beaten up. Sledgehammer to the head, remember? And then, of course, whatever other kind of abuse that she got while he was assaulting her. She is freaking out. She's screaming like, let me go. Let me be free. But Lauren, he's not having any of it. She's out on the side of the road and he goes to the back of the van. Presumably, I don't know what he was doing back there. I don't know. But when he comes back around, he has a hatchet. Yeah, a hatchet. Yeah. I have to control myself because this is crazy. Crazy, crazy. She grabs onto him because where they have pulled off on the side of the road, some articles actually called it a cliff or like a ravine, but it said it was like a 30-foot drop. And I don't know if that's a sheer drop or like a slope or what, but she's tipsy and everything, remember, from this alcoholic substance. So she reaches up to grab him because she feels like she's falling backwards. And this is where he brings the hatchet down and one swoop cuts off her arm from like the elbow down. She feels that motion of falling, so she reaches out with her other hand. And here he has to proceed several times. I think it said 4 times to be exact, on the other arm to chop it off. Her brain is like registering bits and pieces in the sense of she said she could remember the burning and the stinging pains that come with somebody literally hatcheting your arm off, hatcheting. And yet she's still like falling backwards. And her brain's like, why am I falling backwards if I'm holding on to this guy? But as she looks down, she realizes he has cut her four arms off. And she actually has a moment where she sees one of her arms still grasping on to his shirt as he's trying to fling it off. Whoo-wee, can you imagine what that would be like? So she falls, watches him fling her arm off of his body, and then he proceeds to come back and drag her down the rest of the way. So at the bottom of this ravine is like a culvert, I think is what they call it, and it's basically The articles called it a cement pipe, but it really kind of looks like where they would put, I'm trying to think of what those are called, where they would put like the cement, like kind of a little cement bridge, but then there's the hole in the middle and the water drainage can go through. So I guess it's called a culvert. And he proceeds to stuff her naked, armless body into the spot. So the thought on this is that she was just gonna bleed out, and he would cover her up, and people, they wouldn't find her. So he proceeds to do all of this, and then he says, "You wanted to be free? Now you're free." And he just proceeds on. Like he just on his merry way, just leaves. So like wow. Wow. He goes from picking up this young girl who he apparently sees his own daughter in like this young, I mean, he brings it up right away, proceeds to brutally attack her and have his way with her, and then like discards her on the side of the road. Like, how did that escalate so quickly? Like, was that always the plan? I mean, I think it was. I think the plan was always to kill her. Because how do you go from like rape and assault to brutal murder? So Mary is laying inside of this culvert, and she's really cold and she's tired, which, I mean, she lost a lot of blood. She got her arms hatcheted off. She kept thinking, like, I just want to go to sleep. I just want to go to sleep. But this small, still voice in her head kind of is like, if you go to sleep, you're going to die, and he's going to be able to do this to somebody else. That thought kind of motivates her. Like, she doesn't want this to happen to anybody else. And I just thought, wow, after all of this stuff, her thoughts are on somebody else. Like, she does not want somebody else to go through hell, right? Like, basically. So she manages to get herself out of this cement pipe, realizes that she is losing a ton of blood, manages at 15, mind you, to think, if I don't stop the bleeding somehow, I'm just going to bleed out. She sticks like the nubs of her arms into the dirt. Now, what this does is the blood and the dirt mix together and make kind of like a mud paste. She uses this on the ends of her arms to not only keep the blood, like lessen the flow of the blood, but she uses it to also hold in the muscle in her arms that is trying to come out. Whew. Oh, can you imagine? Oh my word. After this, she climbs up this 30-foot ravine, which now Lawrence was 51 years old and he managed to do it. But again, she's 15. She's lost her arms. She's lost a ton of blood. So this is not an easy task for her. I'm going for grunge eyes. I hope it looks good. I don't know what's going on. Anyways, she gets to the top of this road, and it's like I said, it was deserted. There's nobody out here. Nobody's coming for her. So she hears this distant traffic. In the distance, where she hears the traffic, she's just like, I'm gonna walk that way. It takes her so long. It's so far. It's like so many miles. And probably because of the fact that she's lost so much blood, partially. But, you know, this is not easy. This is not an easy task. What am I doing? I think I just messed up my eyes here. And it's not an easy task. She walks for however long it takes. The sun is starting to rise because remember, it had gotten dark. She finally gets to where there's like other cars around. And she's just hopeful. She's hopeful somebody's going to stop for her. But she also realizes that if whoever's coming, this is a horrific scene because she is naked. She's got mud all over her. Now, like, nubs. Is that the nicest way to say it? I don't know. She knows that if anybody pulls, like, sees her, this is terrifying. This is a terrifying scene to come across. So here comes a red Corvette. The red Corvette has two men in it who, when they see her, she starts to yell for help, but they're freaking out, right? Like, they don't know what's going on. They don't know if this person is gonna try to hurt them, or they don't want what happened to her happen to them. And use this little stamp. Hopefully it comes out good. So they speed away. Mary kind of goes, like, what are you gonna do? And doesn't even blame them for taking off. A little bit later, by literally the grace of God, guardian angels, whatever you want to say, this couple who was on their honeymoon, who shouldn't have even been out there in the first place, they take a wrong road, which leads them straight to Mary. When they come up on her, of course, they're like mortified. What is going on? What is wrong? What happened? They're freaked. But they actually pull over and help her. They ended up having some linens in their vehicle, and they wrap up her arms, kind of like get her set up. Back then in the 70s, nobody had cell phones. So they have to try to go to the nearest cell phone. Where is it? They got to find it, which happens to be a airport. They get to the airport and they're able to call an ambulance. So when the ambulance gets there, I don't know if they ended up like realizing their local hospital was not going to be able to help with this severe injuries. So she actually gets helicopter like flown out to a better hospital that is going to be able to really help with her injuries. When she gets to this other hospital, they have to actually take some parts out of her legs to repair her arms. Like, they're bad. And remember, she was a dancer, so this basically ends her dancing career because of all this stuff they had to do to her legs. I'm not really sure what it was, but it was bad. She also lost 50% of her blood, and the remaining blood in her body had grown to be a really toxic level. So the fact that she even survives is just miraculous. Miraculous. Doing your eyes, doing eyeliner while talking is hard. Now, it would be no surprise that she's been traumatized and she does not want to relive what she just went through. However, it's really important that when go through something like this, that you give as much detail as possible, because if we want this guy caught, the police have to know as much as you can tell them. The only thing that she had been able to muster up to the couple from how weak she was that she had been raped. So the couple was not really able to give any details other than how they found her and that she claimed that she had been raped. But once she kind of came to, she was able to give some details, but she was a little foggy on some of the details. Maybe it was just from like lack of self, like, I mean, she lost a lot of blood. And then they ended up using forensic hypnosis to get the whole entire story out of her. I thought that was really interesting, because how often do you hear that? Like, what is even forensic hypnosis anyway? Is that regular hypnosis? I don't know, but it was really cool. She was able to give such a detailed description that the sketch artist was able to draw up something that was so good that when they put it on like the news, the neighbor of Lawrence knew immediately, like, that's Lawrence. And so, yay, neighbor, he called and turned in Lawrence. So Mary had a long, long recovery ahead of her. And I apologize that I've said so about 500 times. I'm trying to remember all of the things at once. I'm a little impressed that I have managed to get this far. I don't know what you think of the makeup. It might be. I'm going for grunge. Okay, I'm going for grunge. Anyways, she had a hard recovery ahead of her based off the fact that she now had to learn how to use prosthetic arms. She had to go through physical therapy. She had to go through mental therapy. It was going to be a long recovery for Mary, but she was alive. And now Lawrence had been brought in. So I'm sure that moment of knowing he had been caught probably was a really good moment just because you're not fearful that he's still out there and learning about, that maybe you're still alive and, that whole ordeal. Lawrence, of course, plays the deny, deny, deny game and tries to say that he doesn't know what she's talking about. He actually comes up with this story that he picked up Mary along with two other guys. One of those guys happened to be also called Larry, and she probably just got them mixed up. That's kind of like what he says. This other Larry guy and this third man and Lawrence, uh, we're told that Mary was basically a $10 a night hooker. Whore is actually the right word that he used. And that they just paid their $10 and then they just had their way with her because, they paid. Which I just felt like that was insult to injury. You brutally, you horrible human being. And then you're going to call her a whore on top of all that. Did my eyes roll? I don't even know. I don't know what I'm doing here with my makeup. I think it's getting worse. I think it's getting worse. But that's what happens when you don't have a plan. So they can't, that's not a confession, right? Like saying, oh, you slept with her because you thought she was a prostitute or whatever, even though he should have just gone to jail for the fact that she was 15 and he was 1,000 years old, but that's not what happened. So they had to go to his house, but luckily his house did not disappoint. They found the rest of the cigarettes that she had smoked when she was in his car. They found clothes that she was wearing that he tried to burn. If you just like dropped her off and went on your merry way, why do you have clothes of hers? Wouldn't she have taken her clothes? On top of that, his van was cleaned like to the T, like washed, all that. And he ripped out the carpet. That's not normal. People don't just do that. That was all a bunch of evidence against him. Somehow they found out that he had tried to commit suicide just a couple days after this incident as well, which they used as kind of like a, you're guilty and you felt bad about it, so you tried to commit suicide. I'm not sure how they found that out, but I'm not even going to ask questions. They found it out and they used that against him. He ends up going to trial. Sorry, my thing got stuck in there and I can't get it out. And of course, Mary has to relive this whole horrific ordeal because she has to testify against him. How scary would that be? This guy, this is so much foundation. This guy chops your arms off, brutally assaults you, and you have to sit within just, oh my goodness, oh my goodness. This is so much foundation. I'm so sorry. I'm sorry. I look like a clown. You have to sit across from this guy. That would be terrifying. I apologize, Mary. I'm like not trying to make light of this. I didn't think my face was gonna do this. I need to hear this. So, anyways, she's terrified because I mean, anybody would be terrified. Plus, if you ever watch those, like the defense attorneys are sometimes really brutal, and I would not want to go through that. She ends up testifying against the kidnapping, the rape, the assault, and luckily the jury finds him guilty for all of that, including like mutilation of body parts, sodomy. I'm like, I mean, there was some stuff that happened, and he got found guilty. So that is some good to this story. The negative to this is he's in California, and at the time they had really overcrowded prisons. So what are they going to do? They, well, first of all, let me tell you the sentencing. I almost forgot. He was only able to get 14 years. That was like the max amount of sentencing that you could actually get at the time. 14 years for all of that. I mean, that is infuriating in itself, if you ask me. Then, because of their overcrowded jails, they're trying to get people out of there. So basically, it was like for every day that you work, you got a day off of your sentence. For example, if you had 6 years, you worked 3 of them, you get 3 years off. You get it. You get it. He ends up only having to work 8, sorry, only has to serve 8 years of his sentence. And part of that was for good behavior, which I just thought was ridiculous considering the fact that he's super violent and he was good. No, I don't buy that. I don't buy that. But let me look at my notes because I did want to read you the quote. Before he gets released, he ends up having a psych evaluation, and the notes that were actually written about him in the psych evaluation were crazy. Here's what it says. He is so out of touch with his hostility and anger that he is an elevated threat to other safety, both inside and outside of the prison. Yet they still released him. Like, what's the point of a psych evaluation if when they come back and they're like, yeah, he's still crazy, he's still dangerous, and they're like, yeah, just let him go. I mean, to top it off, Mary, who's trying to get her life back together, she's had 2 boys at this point. She's gotten engaged. And she's trying. She even found out that she was good at being an artist with her prosthetic arms, which is like amazing. She finds out on her wedding day that Lawrence is being released early. Like, way to burst a good day, like a good bubble. So frustrating. I'm like so upset for her. So anyways, he gets released. Now, here's the really kind of like funny part of this. When he gets released, it does not just like turn into sunshine and rainbows for him. This had been so publicized, people knew who he was. So when he gets released, people do not want him in their area. Okay. To the point where they decided to protest against him, and 400 people turn up to protest where he's like dropped off, right? Like, you're going to live here. And they're like, no, not in our town. No, you're not. 400 people. So again, it's like every time they move him, people go to protest. They even put him in a hotel for a night. It's just to like, we don't know what we're going to do with him. Put him in this hotel. We'll figure it out. People catch wind that he's at this hotel, and 175 people show up to protest at the hotel. So they're like, what are we going to do with him? He has a year of parole. This is where they put him on San Quentin's prison like grounds in a trailer because they don't know what the heck they're going to do with him. So he basically ends up having to go back to jail. I mean, not really, because, he's on parole. But I thought that was hilarious. And I think that we should do that with everybody. Like, everybody that gets out of jail that is violent and torturous, we should just come out in droves and be like, no, put him back in there. When he gets off of that, he ends up going back to Florida, which is Tampa is where he's originally from. Same kind of thing happens. Like, people do not want him around. He goes to his brother's house for a little while, but his brother's house starts getting like people are throwing like fire bombs at it. So he has to leave there. He eventually finds this area where people either don't know who he is or they just don't care. They're just like, whatever, he did his time. I don't know. They don't really care all that much. Now, if he would have stayed in prison, that would be the end of our story. I would be able to just be like, he's out. He died of something. I don't know. But of course, that's not the end of our story, is it? Of course not. He had been rumored to be like sick. Like some people thought that maybe he had cancer, but he just picks up right back where he was on the whole like alcoholic scene. And the neighbors even said that he was violent. I mean, people are like, we're not hanging out with this guy. He's not a great guy. He's violent. He's an alcoholic. So people are kind of just like leaving him. One neighbor realizes that he's acting really strange. He keeps getting in and out of his vehicle. This, of course, gets his enough attention where he goes over and he investigates. He finds out that Lawrence is funneling smog into his cab of his car and trying to commit suicide. He saves Lawrence's life. He will later on say that he regrets this because of what happens next. This is where we're going to talk about his next victim, Roxanne Hayes. Roxanne Hayes was 31 years old. She was a mother of 3. She said there were 3 boys. She said that her boys were her little men and they were everything to her. She had had a really rough upbringing. Basically, her grandfather had allegedly sexually abused her. Her father had been very violent towards her. And when she turned 14 years old, her mom passed away. And she's like, I'm done. I'm done with you people. I'm done with this situation. And she gets out of Dodge. This would lead her to have a drug habit from being on the streets and just all that homeless teenagers, like the tragedy of that. So when she got addicted to drugs, she actually gets into sex work to keep her drug habit alive and well. Now, even though she has this drug habit and she's doing prostitution, it was said that she took really great care of her boys and they always came first to her, which is like props to her because how many drug addict parents do not put their kids first? She was said that she would like take them to Chuck E. Cheese for their birthday parties. She'd go all out. It would just she was a good mom by all accounts, as best as she could be. So she meets Lawrence and goes back to his place to earn some money. Here's what happens. A neighbor comes by to talk to Lawrence about doing some work. And he knocks on the door. There's no answer. He realizes like he can hear something, like something's going on. He sees a window open, goes to the window, and he looks in and sees this horrific sight. Lawrence is standing naked over Roxanne and he's strangling her and like beating her. The guy, I don't know why he doesn't intervene at this moment, but runs back home or runs to a location to call police. When police show up, it is too late for Roxanne. She has been stabbed and strangled to death. Lawrence answers the door naked and covered in blood. First of all, why did the police knock on the door? Why did they bust the door down? But they don't. And they're like, why are you covered in blood? To which he replies, I cut myself when I was chopping veggies. First of all, dude, how many of us chop veggies naked? Because I don't. And second of all, that's a lot of blood for a finger cut, wouldn't you say? But Lawrence can't get out of this one. Like, he can't deny that he killed Roxanne because they find her on the living room floor. I mean, what do you do? So he doesn't even try to deny this one. He just basically says she tried to steal from him, and so he got mad and killed her. Roxanne and Mary actually looked a lot alike. So some people speculate that he saw Roxanne and he was already like he had it out for Mary. And so his thoughts were kind of like, I don't know where Mary is, but I could take out my frustrations on Roxanne. Which, I mean, people were afraid of him. Even his own daughter was worried that when he got out of jail that he would come after her. So this, I mean, was plausible, right? And he goes to jail. He gets found convicted guilty for the murder of Roxanne, and he gets put on death row. Unfortunately, in 2001, he would die on death row of cancer, which originally Mary was not too happy about. Kind of that whole like, I want answers and I want justice. But her boys were really actually relieved, and that kind of helped trigger her to be relieved of the fact that it was over. Like, they did not have to worry about this guy coming after her. They did not have to worry about him hurting anybody else. Things were just finally done. Mary ends up getting remarried. She goes around and she starts talking about the things that have happened to her, goes on TV shows, goes around to schools, becomes like this really inspirational, survivor story. A lot of people really admired her and felt like, I mean, this is incredible. This is so incredible. So she ends up, just inspiring so many people with her survival. She also sells her art, by the way. So you can always look into that, because if you can support her, that would be awesome. There is one more thing that I just want to point out, because I think it is really important to the story. There was a bill that was passed called the Singleton Bill. So Lawrence Singleton was named after him. Basically, what this bill said was that if you had any um, torturous stuff, and if your crime was because you were like like you tortured human beings, had to at least go to jail for 25 years. That was the minimum that you would get instead of the 14 that Lawrence only got. And you could not do the work off program. So it's unfortunate that couldn't have been like applied to him, because then, Roxanne would still be here. But it's always like something always has to happen. Something bad always has to happen for like these bills and things to happen. But I didn't want to forget that. So at the end of the day, I'm very, very thankful that there is a stricter policy for people who are like torture people, right? Like, but that being said, I hope you really enjoyed today's episode. I'm so sorry that I said so about a bazillion times. I know that's not a number, but girl math, I know that's not how you apply that. It was fun. I had fun. I hope you enjoyed it. And until next time, please, please stay safe out there, friends. Like, hit the subscribe button. Share this with somebody if you are bored. They like murder, they like mystery. I'm here for you every Tuesday. Bye.